The NCAA tournament has officially been whittled down to just 4 teams, with this stage being called the Final Four, if you didn't know. No real Cinderellas or surprise teams this season that made it to this stage, which is a little sad, as those teams are some of the best stories every March. And even though no random teams made it this season, there's always seemed to be that one team who just played good enough to sneak in. So that's exactly what I want to share with you viewers today. I found some odd, small basketball schools throughout the tournament's 86-year history that ended up making the Final Four, and most of the time, never got back to that point. Now, 2 years ago was probably the oddest year ever for March Madness, especially with the Final Four, as 3 of those teams, FAU, San Diego State, and Miami, all made it to their very first Final Four. Not to forget as well, San Diego State and Miami were 5 seeds, while FAU was an 8 seed, so these teams were not the best of the best seed-wise. First with FAU. These Owls were pretty lucky first round of the tourney, a close battle the entire way, and FAU won a jump ball call with 5.5 seconds left. A great drive to the paint got an open look, and they made the basket, taking the lead 66-65, then where Memphis weren't able to get the final shot off. Second round, FAU got, on paper, another easy test in 16 seed FDU, who became the second 16 seed to knock off a 1 seed. This was another close game all the way, but at the 2:20 mark with an and 1, FAU pulled away for the 78-70 victory. Now the team's first real test, I'd say, in Tennessee. After being down at half 27-22, FAU finally took the lead with 10 minutes to go and didn't look back. Ended up winning this game by 7. An Elite 8 matchup against one of America's favorite teams, Kansas State, was next, and this was their closest test yet. After a miss FAU free throw, Kansas State got the rebound and sunk the 3-ball to make it a 1-point game. Michael Forrest hit 4 clutch free throws in a row for the Owls, and with 7 seconds left, K-State didn't even get a shot off. Maybe they needed a little more little baby playing. Then the Final Four matchup came against team number 2 of this tournament, San Diego State's first round matchup against Charleston, and where this was a dicey game. Charleston had the game tied with 2:30 to go, yet the Aztecs eventually pulled away for the 63-57 win. Round of 32 was against potential Cinderella Furman, but SDSU easily won by 23. The number 1 team of the tournament was San Diego State's matchup for the Sweet 16. SDSU found themselves down 9 with 11:30 to go. Then the team put together a 12-0 run to take the lead 51-48, and where the Aztecs didn't lose the lead after that. 6-seed Creighton was waiting for them in the Elite 8, and we're at the 34-second mark. The Aztecs threw away an inbound pass, and Creighton tied it up at 56-all. But a foul on San Diego State's last-second shot attempt sent them to the line, and where they made 1 of 2 to win the game 57-56. Which meant this Final Four of 2 odd teams, San Diego State and FAU, took place. SDSU had to claw their way back into this game the second half, all the way to a tied game with 4:20 to go. A consistent 3-point to 1-point lead changed the final 4 minutes. Then with 10 seconds after an FAU miss, San Diego State did this.
They don't have the scorers on the floor. It's Butler with 2 seconds. He's got to put it up. And he wins it with the jumper.
The Aztecs won on a buzzer beater to make the championship, and where they got smoked by UConn. On the other side of the bracket this season was the Miami Hurricanes, and surprisingly enough, their toughest test between their first 3 games was against the Drake Bulldogs. Opening round, the 12-seed Bulldogs had an 8-point lead with 4:30 to go. However, Drake only managed to score 1 point in those final 4.5 minutes, while Miami scored 16 and won 63-56. Round of 32, Miami easily beat 4-seed Indiana by 16 and outplayed 1-seed Houston to win by 14. 2-seed Texas was Miami's Elite 8 matchup, where Texas was holding the lead 45-37 at half. Miami once again had to claw back from a double-digit deficit and took the lead after a free throw at the 5:30 mark. Then a back-and-forth game until Miami took over with free throws and won 88-81. For the Final Four, it was against 4-seed UConn, and not to spoil the result, but the Huskies didn't trail a single second in this game, if you pick up what I'm dropping down. After this crazy 2023 tournament, 2017 is the next season where I think one of the most forgotten runs happened. 7-seed South Carolina, led by Sindarius Thornwell, had their first game against Marquette. No problem here as South Carolina won by 20. 2-seed Duke was next, and where the Gamecocks were down at half. When the clock struck 6:30 in the second half, South Carolina was up by 9 and pretty much kept this gap until the end, winning 88-81. Sweet 16 against Baylor was another easy 20-point win, and 4-seed Florida was standing in their way to the Final Four. A close game the entire way, but with 2 minutes left in the game, a Gators turnover led to a mid-range jumper for South Carolina to move the lead to 4. Florida responded with a quick two of their own, but South Carolina kept their foot on the pedal, not letting Florida get back into the game and won 77-70. Gonzaga was South Carolina's matchup in their first ever Final Four, and where it wasn't looking pretty. Gonzaga was up 45-36 at half, except South Carolina started a run. And I mean a run. As with 10:42 left in this Final Four game, the South Carolina Gamecocks went on a 16-0 run to take the lead 67-65, all the way until the 6:40 mark when Gonzaga finally made a three to retake the lead. Sadly, South Carolina only scored 6 points in those final 6 minutes and 40 seconds, which led to Gonzaga win of 77-73. 7 years before South Carolina, the next odd school made their run at greatness. After the West Virginia Mountaineers won their first Big East title after a crazy tournament run there, the Mountaineers came into the tourney as a 2 seed and easily beat 15 seed Morgan State. For surprisingly how close this round of 32 game against Missouri ended up being, West Virginia didn't trail at all in this game. Sweet 16 wasn't scary at all and resulted in another easy win by 13 against Washington. Then 1 seed in the East Kentucky Wildcats were the Mountaineers' Elite 8 game. This stacked Kentucky team of John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and Eric Bledsoe were down at half by 2 to the Mountaineers. Then with 17:30 left in the game, West Virginia stretched their lead to 10, stretching the lead all the way up to 16 at one point and eventually winning this game 73-66. West Virginia faced Duke in the Final Four this 2010 season, where they played Duke close until the 16:30 mark in the second half. At this point, the Mountaineers were only down 5, then Duke slowly kept increasing their lead to where the Blue Devils won the game 78-57. The Minnesota Gophers in 1997 are the next program. This season was actually the Gophers' best year ever in D1 basketball record-wise, coming into the tourney 27-3 and were the 1 seed in the Midwest region. Their first 2 games against Texas State and Temple were easy 78-46 and 76-57 wins respectively. Sweet 16 against Clemson was another story. Minnesota held a 2-point lead with 8 seconds and were at the line to make it a 3-point lead. However, both free throws fell just short, and Clemson rushed down the court where they made a tough shot in the paint to force overtime. In OT, tied at 80, Clemson turned the ball over, leaving Minnesota with 20 seconds and a chance to win. Minnesota had all the time in the world and took a terrible shot that didn't go in, meaning double overtime, where the Gophers finally pulled away to win 90-84. Elite 8 against UCLA was another close game until the last couple minutes as Minnesota pulled away with free throws for the 80-72 victory. The Final Four for Minnesota was a tough game. The Gophers had a better field goal percentage than Kentucky, yet 27 fouls committed by the Gophers led to 34 free throw attempts for the Wildcats and a Wildcat win by 9. What makes this Final Four run memorable is that not only is it Minnesota's first and to be only Final Four run, but this run actually isn't a thing anymore. That's right, this 97 run was vacated by the NCAA as Minnesota committed academic fraud where an advisor completed coursework for players. Just the year before Minnesota, another 1 seed went to their first and only Final Four in school history. The UMass Minutemen came in with only 1 loss on their record and were a top team in the East region. First game against UCF was a 92-70 win, and second round turned out to be a tough game. UMass were only up 2 at half against Stanford, and star player Marcus Camby was in foul trouble this game for the Minutemen. Stanford hit a 3 to bring the game within 1 with 50 seconds remaining, but a mid-range jumper was UMass's response, 77-74. Stanford's next shot was way off target, which marked the end of the game with a UMass win of 79-74. Sweet 16 against Arkansas was a 16-point win. Then the Elite 8 game against Georgetown was a 24-point win. UMass ran into Minnesota's foe of Kentucky this Final Four, and almost a similar script to the Minnesota game. UMass gave Kentucky 30 free throw attempts in the game, and where Kentucky seemingly controlled the entire game while fending off a rally leading to a Wildcat win of 81-74. And just as the 96-97 Minnesota team, these Minutemen also got their 96 Final Four run vacated by the NCAA. Marcus Camby was found to have dealt with agents while still in school where he accepted gifts. This would have made him an ineligible player during this run and thus resulted in the loss of these tournament games. Some white guy from Indiana led his small program to the Final Four and championship in 1979. Larry Bird and the Indiana State Sycamores went to their first NCAA tournament ever this season, where they breezed by their first 2 opponents by an average margin of victory of 19 points. Indiana State's perfect season was in jeopardy as Arkansas was in the lead at half 39-37. This led to a close game to the very end, as when there was 18 seconds, Indiana State took a timeout being tied 71-71 with the Razorbacks. The Sycamores could have got the ball to Bird for the final shot, but the ball swung around the perimeter and got passed to Bob Heaton. Indiana State moved on to the Final Four, and where they encountered another tight game, this time being against 2-seed DePaul. By halftime, Bird and the boys held the 45-42 lead. Fast forward to a minute 13 remaining, and DePaul had the lead 74-73. Indiana State took the lead back after wasting 23 seconds and making a layup. DePaul proceeded down the court, called a timeout, then used up the entire clock, where they took a bad shot and where the Sycamores got the rebound. DePaul then fouled, meaning Indiana State won 76-74. The national championship game became the first instance of a Larry Bird and Magic Johnson rivalry, and it became one of the most viewed championship games ever. Michigan State held a comfortable lead throughout the entire game, and this ended up as the 75-64 Spartans championship victory. 1970 also saw a similar experience as the 2023 tournament. 3 small schools competed in the Final Four this season. The first team I want to look at out of the 3 is going to be St. Bonaventure. The Bonnies came into the tourney with a record of 22-1 and really didn't have a problem any game of the tournament up until the Final Four. Game 1 against Davidson won 85-72. Game 2 against NC State won 80-68. Game 3 against Villanova won 97-74. Then they were in the Final Four against team number 2, with team 2 being Jacksonville Dolphins, who were led by Artis Gilmore, and who also came in with a nearly identical record as the Bonnies, with a 23-1 record of their own. Game 1 for the Dolphins was an easy 109-96 win. What sucks for Game 2, Jacksonville was down second round to Iowa 102-103, and on Jacksonville's final shot, it bounced off the rim, but a tip-in by the Dolphins led to their 104-103 victory, but I can't find any clips anywhere. Game 3 was against number 1 team in the country, Kentucky, and this game had some clips. Another high-scoring close game where Jacksonville won 106-100. Then the matchup between Jacksonville and St. Bonaventure was this side of the bracket's Final Four, where the Dolphins were up 42-34 at half and maintained the 8-point lead to a 91-83 win. Unfortunately, Jacksonville ran into the dominant UCLA run of those years. The Dolphins had the lead very early on, then UCLA came back and stopped any Jacksonville run, leading to another Bruins NCAA title. Opposite side of the bracket sat New Mexico State, where like the other 2 teams, Game 1 was an easy win against Rice, 101-77. Sadly, no clips until their Final Four game, but the Lobos beat Kansas State in the close 70-66 game, then beat Drake University by 9 Game 3. Obviously, with UCLA winning the championship, it meant they beat New Mexico State in the Final Four. Not a very close game either, with the Bruins winning 93-77. Then the final team on my list, and a very far throwback, with this being the 1942 and 1944 Dartmouth teams. Now to note, with these tournaments back in the day, only 8 teams made the tournament, which meant only the best of the best could be in them. But then this also means that if you win just 1 game in the tourney, you were in the Final Four. So this time period of college basketball had too many interesting teams to make the Final Four. So I chose to focus on Dartmouth, a team who hasn't made the tourney since 1959. For their first tournament in 42, Dartmouth came in with a 20-3 record, setting them up against Penn State in the regional semifinals. Big Green won by 5, 44-39, to advance to play Kentucky, where Dartmouth cruised by with a 47-28 win. This meant a championship appearance against Stanford was on the books, and where Stanford got the better of Dartmouth, beating them 53-38. Tournament 2 and 44 saw maybe even a better version of the Big Green. This team came in with a 17-1 record and smoked their first matchup of Catholic University 63-38. The Final Four against Ohio State was closer, with the contest ending 60-53. Now another shot at the championship, and this time being against Utah. By halftime it was an 18-17 Dartmouth advantage, then Utah had the advantage in the second half with a 19-18 score, and if you do the math, that comes out to a 36-36 tie game meaning overtime. This OT was an even contest until Utah's Herb Wilkinson sunk the game winner to give the Utes a 42-40 championship victory. Now all of these random basketball schools made history in one way or another, making it to the Final Four. Some teams got to keep their accolade of this event, while others didn't. But what we can't forget is how exciting these teams made the March Madnesses they were in, and how we can only dream to see more teams like this in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and hitting the bell notifications. Thank you.